Hey guys, if you can hear me fine, good. Otherwise, there's headphones, and we're gonna get going. So, hey everyone, nice to meet you. I am Carl Fluke. I'm a senior developer advocate here with the Base team. Been working on it since we launched our testnet about a year ago, and we went live in late July. So what I want to talk about is what is account abstraction. So 100% what is account abstraction from a 4337 EIP level. I want to talk about our Coinbase Smart Wallet, which is kind of like a first-party 4337 wallet. Talk about our bounties, and then talk about some of the fun things that are coming in the next base upgrade. So what is account abstraction? There's a lot of people that have a confusion about this. Some like MPC-based wallet keys call themselves account abstraction, but I want to focus very much so by what the Ethereum Foundation says. And that is that truly account abstraction is using a smart contract wallet. So you are switching from using an EOA to having a smart contract wallet that you can have more programmability and more security and better user experiences by doing so. And throughout this, you'll kind of see some highlights of that. Okay, so what a smart contract wallet can do is today, when you actually have a new person try to do on-chain things with crypto, you have these 5 steps. You go to a dApp, it says, hey, connect this wallet. If you don't have one, it's a Chrome extension or mobile app. And then you have to do some wallet connection approval. Then you have to go to some fiat to crypto on-ramp, get some tokens so I can actually do it, and then I can interact. But with the smart contract wallet, we can simplify that to a drastically shorter onboarding time, and it'll be slightly more integrated. Okay, so let's break down from a technical dev level about what 4337 is and what the pieces are involved. So the main things that we have here are, instead of user transaction, we now have user operations. So these are mostly the same. There's like 3 new fields that have to do with verification gas. So just know they're different. As a developer, they're pretty similar. The next is you have a bundler. So as its name applies, is it accepts all these user operations from your user and it bundles them into a transaction. So this is a service that goes before the actual blockchain to where it's accepting a queue of user ops, it's sorting them, and then it's ultimately submitting it as a transaction to the L1 blockchain. You have the entry point. That is just where the bundler submits a collection of user ops. I'll break that down a little bit more in the next slide. Then you actually have the smart contract wallet. So this is a account factory that you make your smart contract from, and this could have a series of plugins. It could be a first party. There's a bunch of providers in this space, and we'll talk a bit about them too. And then lastly, you have a Paymaster. So this is a contract on chain that you can send your user op to the Paymaster and say, hey, do you want to pay for this? So as a developer, that's probably like the biggest UX improvement is that you can pay for gas with an ERC20 token. You can make it so the first 5 transactions on your dApp are just paid for you. After 4844, gas is cheap enough now that like if I'm in an NFT marketplace, if I want to sponsor 1 cent, if you buy like an over $10 NFT, then you can just remove the concept of gas for your users. So from like an economic cycle, Paymasters are much more attractive after that Denkun upgrade a couple days ago. Okay, so what are the actual like end user benefits of using 4337? The first is a simpler user experience. You can just remove gas or what the idea of that is from an end user, so they can have much more of like a Web 2 user experience. A big one is multi-call. So by default, when I want to do like a DeFi position today, I go and I say, hey, I want to approve ETH, or I want to approve like USDC, I want to approve USDT, then I do my submission into a DeFi pool, and then maybe I stake it. With 4337, you can actually just make that one approval, and you can have 4 user ops signed in one signature. So the user experience of that is drastically better. I mentioned simplify gas. The other big one is you can upgrade these smart contracts. So if you want to have like I can spend a max of $500 a day as part of your logic for security. You can upgrade that and change that amount. So it is a little more future-proof. Lastly, you kind of have block level security checks, which is very nice if prices are changing and you want to protect your users. So this is the flow. You have a user operation. You submit them into a mempool for the bundler. The bundler takes those, aggregates them, sends them to the entry point. The entry point essentially goes through a loop of saying, hey, smart account, is this a valid transaction? Can you do this? Do you have the funds? Is it a valid ETH call? And then lastly, it does an execution loop of actually executing that logic. So go do your swap, go do your mint NFT, go do your on-chain transaction. All right. So high level, real quick comparison. On the left is a transaction that you're used to today. You'll notice you have your 1559 priority fees, nonce value, that's all the same. On the right for user operation, the only real differences are, can you see my mouse? Kind of. You have verification gas, so that's an additional payment just to verify that your user op was valid. And then you also have this paymaster and data, which would be, hey, does this paymaster pay the gas for me? And it's just a signature that you can validate on-chain. Okay, so high level, the bundler, what it does is it collects those user operations, it validates them, so it's actually doing like a debug simulation of your transaction, some basic checks here of, hey, is this a valid thing? It also does a little bit more where it aggregates them at the paymaster level to say, hey, does this paymaster, can it afford the 10 user ops in my bundle? It also does some things about you can't call a smart contract that is getting deployed in the same bundle. So if you're using a factory to create a smart contract, you can't manipulate that smart contract in the same transaction. The other big thing that is still very growing, if you want to extend bundlers, is there's a reputation system. So if you have like a paymaster poisoning these user ops, there's reputation checks around that of invalid transactions, things like that. I have the EIP later if you're interested. And then lastly, to protect itself, it does kind of aggregate error codes in these three buckets, senders, paymaster, and factory contracts. Okay, lastly, our next is our paymaster. This is also an area where things can drastically improve. The basic thing paymasters are doing for policies now is saying, hey, I want the first 5 transactions to be free for my users. Very simple. Or I want to pay up to like or I want to pay like $10 a ETH for transactions. Paying with the ERC20 is also very common, that you can maintain a liquidity pool of, hey, here's my game token, I swap it to ETH so I can pay for gas for my users. Something new that's coming is you can also pay off chain. So like if I have a $10 subscription, you could make it so that, hey, somebody just has a credit card, they say, hey, for this wallet, I want $10 of gas to just be paid for me. So user experience-wise, that's drastically better. That's what they're used to in Web 2. So if anybody is hacking on paymaster policies, that's also something I'm super curious what else can be there. I've seen a lot of things with like DAOs to where like for my DAO, if you're doing a vote on chain, the DAO probably can afford to pay for your gas to do your voting, things like that, to where it makes more sense for like the economy or growing. Okay, cool. I ran through that super fast, which is good. So Smart Wallet is a new release we had with Coinbase Wallet. There's a V4 beta version to where it more or less like white labels a 4337 wallet for you. The main thing it is doing is it removes the idea of a private key, and it's following kind of like a Web 2 world passkey. So a whole bunch of companies now in Web 2 are starting to switch to passkeys for login, like Xbox, Microsoft, Sony, like Target, a whole bunch of e-commerce is moving to it. So it's kind of like a tricky way to get Web 2 people very used to like not having a private key, but it's a passkey. And this is built in with our Wallet V4. The main advantage we see with this is that wallet, the Coinbase Wallet SDK is already in multiple hundred apps. So really just upgrading to that V4 gives you a new passkey wallet. And we do want to see some people put this into hackathon projects over this. It is already integrated with like WAGMI VM. So it should be very much so just upgrade the version and you get a free improvement. Only other 2 things to know that are gotcha. You do need to make sure that your smart contracts follow 1271, which is like a signature validation. The docs that are linked later give you good detail about that. And then also, if you're using the Coinbase Chrome extension, we do recommend you disable it, just because there is some collision. We are getting feedback on Farcaster, so if you remember there, that's kind of like our preferred support channel. Okay, the real magic feature that we can have with this is what we call magic spend. So Coinbase has a smart contract that we're calling the piggy bank, to where we let users actually use their retail balance on chain directly. So if they have ETH in their retail, we kind of just have a piggy bank of like 100 ETH sitting on chain, and we'll debit their account on chain. So you skip the whole, like, I have to transfer to this wallet to use it. You can just directly use your retail balance. So that's kind of like a magic unlock that you can't do with an EOA. We are going to extend that further to where, like, you can use your payment methods, but retail balance was the starting point. All right, I made good time. So what's next? This week, 4844 came up, which was awesome. I think right now we're still at like 1 cent NFT mints on base mainnet. So that was like an order of magnitude improvement for gas costs. Love to see it. I was kind of like doubting how much we'd seen an improvement, and it's doing well. Specifically for 4337, this also makes it so that the gas overhead of account abstraction is drastically lowered. Something that's coming up in our next upgrade is EIP 7212, which is a precompile for the passkey curve. So right now, smart accounts, your gas is more or less like 80% more than an EOA. Once this precompile goes live, it should drop to be like 10% more. And that'll make it so like the average user won't really notice the difference in between an EOA and a smart account transaction cost. There's a couple EIPs for talking about migration that we're considering. If anybody has thoughts about this, come talk at the base booth. But there's two main ones. One is like, hey, I have an EOA and I want to upgrade it to a smart contract wallet. So there is an opcode to do that, just to make that drastically easier. If we want to make smart accounts the default, this would help us do that. And then lastly, native account abstraction is a roll-up improvement. The team has a lot of debate about it. If you have thoughts on that, that thread is also moving forward. Okay, there's also two big plugin architectures that are on debate. Alchemy is leading 6900. They have a couple plugins out there. Biconomy is doing the 7579. If you're hacking, we are interested in more people making plugins for smart contract wallets around security, around transaction maximums, auto swapping maybe, to where like I want this account to only have USDC in it, things like that at the smart contract level. So to bring it back to like Base's mission about why we care about 4337, we want to have 1 million developers on chain. One stat that I still think is crazy is that there's only like 22 million software engineers in the world. And by 2030, it's supposed to be 29, which is crazy that we have how important of a job it is. There's so few working on it. And then lastly is bringing our Coinbase users on chain. And we really believe like a global on-chain economy will happen on chain. For 4337 world, want to give a big shout out to all the partners that have been building on it for the past year, since ETH Denver last year. Worked with all these guys. Great ecosystem. Okay, so for our bounties, just to give a little more detail specific here, is our first one is build an on-chain product or tool. So this is very generic in general. We just want people to build a product on Base that a normal person out there in the world, like go down the street to somebody in London, and can they use your product? And hopefully it, fully shows that on-chain can be better than like what we currently have in Web 2 world. And then, lastly, try to fill any gaps that are not on Base. Then the second one is there's kind of very different criteria here, so you just need to hit one. Best use of 4337. So that can be using our cloud bundler or Paymaster. You can use that with like Alchemy Account Kit, Pimlico, EtherSpot, any of the providers I showed before. You could make a tool that makes it easier to use account abstraction in your dApp. So like make an improvement in using like Rainbow Kit or some other login provider that makes it dead simple to actually use AA by default. And then lastly is use that V4 of wallet to use kind of like the white labeled version of a passkey wallet. If you're doing a consumer product, that's probably the most straightforward, because you would, as a developer, just be like doing a transaction. Here's some QR codes of like the GitHub repos for that, if everybody wants them.
Since Scotland done is saying it's actually the time waiting here for when you take the one can roll in spread.
Okay. And I did that super quick, so that was good. Do have time for questions, which is perfect. So anybody have questions of 4337 or of the very complicated multiple choices we have of Paymaster Bundler, regular AA, or using the V4 Smart Wallet?
This to what? From AA?
Or if anybody has questions of like the base future roadmap of what we're working on.
It's me. Is it in B? Other kill to be that. It'll obviously be.
Hey, great. Son, great presentation. I'm not used to not hearing myself.
Yeah.
Can you like explain a little bit more about what you mean around native account abstraction? Maybe you can just expand on that.
Yeah, 100%. So this is a proposal to actually make it so that we change the default transaction type in Ethereum to include 2 or 3 new types that are AA specific. So when I showed that user op example, there's like new fields. This is way back. There's new fields, so there's 3 kind of like additional parts that would actually be in the default transaction signature, and then the transaction type has 2 new ones to say like simulate and actually do a user op directly. So yeah, very much so like Web3 Ethers VM would all just be user ops by default. Yeah. I think realistically that's like a year and a half out, but I know the Ethereum Foundation has been doing a lot of good research on that.
The side it's up creative, but there they but
yeah. One thing I don't understand is we at the beginning you said we would have a bunch of user operations and they're signed, right? Does that mean the user still has to create an EOA account to have those signed operations that the the bundler would then bundle into the smart account? How does that work?
Yeah, so the website will still sign them in some way. In the smart wallet example, we're using a passkey. There's a bunch of MPC or other key providers out there, like Privy is a big one we've worked with, to where you can have like an EOA equivalent hidden based on your dApp. So you can do like your login with Google, login with Apple, and it'll give you a temporary key and you'd sign with that. But as a developer, you can sign that in the background on behalf of your user. Yep. And then the other big thing that relates to that is there's also this concept of session keys as a plugin. And that is kind of like the even better way to do this is you could actually make a temporary signing key. So like when I start a game session, you do one signature saying, hey, this game session token's valid for an hour up to a certain amount. And then you just sign in the background for the rest of the experience.
I'll speed it up. You can turn it.
Yeah. All right. There's no... Sorry? Yes, for Alchemy, and so does Biconomy. There's a couple other providers that have it, but those were the 2 that are leading these EIP 6900 and 7579.
One more question. So it seems like 4337 is focused on you have a private key. You can get that through passkey or some other way. And can you touch on how we can connect this with token bound accounts with 6551? That it feels a bit more seamless for apps because you are only delegating the ownership and the authentication of an action based on who owns the underlying NFT, for example.
Yep.
Is there a way these 2 can we can connect both of them, or would it be just completely different?
You can give a 6551, I call it a backpack wallet, to a smart contract wallet, and the smart contract wallet will own it. You can make them work together. Using a smart account, it would simplify the whole like transfer ownership or give or delegate control of. I think you would not want to use those interfaces if you're using a smart account. You'd let the smart account take advantage of that. Yep. Okay, perfect. I'm at time. Thank you all for coming.